so. Yes, good luck. Good luck with that, right? All right, good afternoon, folks. We need to call this meeting to order, please. Welcome, everyone. I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. Everyone can vote at the PERT, and I think Ed, you're on the bubble, right? Yeah. Okay. So, at risk. Yeah. Well, that's not. Well, anyway, I'll go. That's not. So let me read the objective of the primary objective of the CAC is to ensure the capital maintenance and public transportation projects and programs approved by the voters at the November 2nd, 2004, November 6th, 2012, and November 7th, 2017 ballot measures are accomplished with PPRTA funds. The committee reports directly to the PPRTA Board of Directors. All right. Approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Larry and Cheryl. Second? Cheryl? Jean? Okay. Very good. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Very good. Public comments for period items not on the agenda. Anyone from the committee? Members of the audience? I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce Jim Moore. Jim is our new CAC member. Will be officially sitting in next month. Welcome, Jim. We go back a number of years, and I think he'll be a great addition to our group. So we'll let him introduce himself next month. Welcome, Jim. Approval of minutes from the November 6th meeting. Do I have a motion? Tom? Tom, opposed? Yes. Cheryl, Joan, you second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Anybody read them? No. All right. Financial reports. Beverly.
Good afternoon. So as you can see on page 1 of the financial report, we received $9,586,000, so we were almost $750,000 over the monthly budget, and we're $7,787,000 over the year-to-date budget. So we're doing really well as far as meeting the money that we need for the I-25 GAP project. And on page 2, we're $4.4 million ahead of last year with 3 months remaining. Were there any questions about the rest of the finance reports?
All right. Thank you,
Okay,
Beth.
thank you.
That was a good report. All right, item 6A, City of Colorado Springs Capital Maintenance Transportation Contracts. Welcome, Mike.
Bless you.
Good afternoon. Mike Chavez, City Engineering. I've got 4 items for your review today. The first item is a construction contract with Blue Ridge Constructions for the building of a roundabout at Printers Parkway and Parkside. That's it's on Printers just south of Pikes Peak Boulevard. That's a really high accident location. It's one of the city's high accident ones. It's got the volume isn't real high, but the number of accidents compared to the volume has it ranked like number 3 in worst intersection. So this is a grant program that we applied for back a while ago. So we have had to find some additional funds, but we are looking at we've got some grant money. CSU's putting some money in to cover water line upgrades, and we've got $1,181,000 RTA funds to cover the project. We are expected, we'll get started as soon as we can, and I'm not sure, I don't know if I've seen a schedule, but probably maybe 8 months to finish that project.
This is about a block or so from regional planning, right?
Right? Yeah, it's right up. There's a map.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
So in the memo, I included a vicinity map. It's at Parkside, and then I've got a kind of the concept drawing of what that roundabout will look like when we're done.
Joan?
Mike, I am so glad you're doing this project. I travel that area at least twice a month, and what I find is the problem of all of the buildings that are there along that intersection, and their close proximity to the road, and I can't count how many near misses I've had. So I really commend the city for taking on this project. I think this will be a great safety improvement.
Well, that road that goes to the west actually comes downhill, and it's got a little bit of a grade, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. Any other questions on that project? Thank you.
Okay, the next item we have is an on-call guardrail, it's like a service agreement with Adirondack Constructors. That'll just be on-call service that we can use maintenance or capital money and issue task orders against, and that's why it's a $0 contract at this time.
Okay.
Next item we have is a construction contract. Let me turn to that.
Van Buren.
For Avery Asphalt. This is for improvements on Van Buren from Temple and Gap to Circle. There's kind of two segments there, Union kind of being in the middle. So this is a grant project that we had in the works for quite a while. It's pedestrian improvements and bike lane improvements. There's earlier in June, I did a presentation. There was a series of meetings with the neighborhood, and there was good support for that project. This was one where I had requested some additional funds be put into the missing sidewalk program to help cover shortages that we thought were going to be coming. That transfer did not get approved, but we did have money in the missing sidewalk funds set aside for it. I was just trying to supplement that program, but we have funds in there set aside for this. So we've got different funding sources. We've got the grant funding. We've got $40,000 in city bike tax funds that will pay for the road diet. So we're going to take that from 4 lanes to 3 lanes. But city funds will pay for the fog seal and the striping. What we're looking at the RTA funds is to help with the pedestrian access. There's some missing sidewalk. There's some alley crossings that have the vertical curve drop off, so we have to make those passable for pedestrians, and then also curb ramps at some of the corners. So we're looking for approval for the contract and for using $221,000 of RTA funds for that project.
Any questions from anybody? Much better wording and de-emphasizing lane dieting in this memo. Good job. Be prepared for next week, yes. All right.
Then the last item is we have a construction management contract with Wilson for the work that's going to be happening at the Plat Bridge replacement over Sand Creek. We did an RFP process and selected them. We are looking at bidding the actual construction probably in February, but we wanted to get CM on board so they can kind of start looking at the plans and helping us just get ready to go and build that project. So I think that's all we have this month.
Oh, Reb's got a question.
Go ahead, Rick.
Rick?
Is this the process where you're going to be extending Space Center across towns or
It's 50, just west of there.
Well, I'm not sure if we're going to be extending Space Center, but that intersection will be signalized and in anticipation of the road coming in from the other side.
Oh, so then it is the same location where you're actually going to have an access to the south.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
We're not, I don't think we're built, I'm not sure, but I'm not sure if we're building it, but we're planning for it.
Gene?
Work expected to start?
We want to bid it in February, so we probably start April, May.
The reason I'm asking you is this is part of the city's fiber optic fast, so it goes right down that fast.
Oh, we'll hit it then, for sure. No.
That's what happened at the parking garage. It's located
Yeah.
right where the
Yeah.
location is.
No, actually, there's a new state law that requires the plans to be, pretty well worked through to find utilities and locate them. So, in order to eliminate some of those accidents.
I'll make sure Lloyd Mason knows. Maybe make that space for.
No, that's fine, yeah.
Thank you.
And we'll probably have, a pre-con where we'll have all the utilities there. Okay.
Any questions for, Reb, I'm sorry.
Mike? Mike,
You're on.
a couple of questions. Number one, that Space Center drive that was asked about is right next to the bridge, and it's pretty dangerous just making the right-hand turn coming south on it. And now you're planning to put an intersection there. You're changing the overall span from 356 to 199. You're basically cutting almost in half the length of the bridge. That's point one. Second point I want to make is this is part of a Project B list also. So what part? Because we are not done with A, and I heard a number that I don't necessarily agree with, but you're very low percentage of A-list projects are completed. I don't necessarily say I agree with that. I just
Yeah, so this project is federally funded, so it's about a 50-50 split. So we've got, I think, $5 million or almost $6 million of RTA funds, and I think 7 of grant funds. So
for both bridges?
For both, yeah. So we're basically building the other, what's weird is we put it in as one direction was A, the other direction was B, and we applied for a grant, and we've got RTA matching it. So basically, we've got funds, RTA funds paying for one bridge, and the grant's paying for the other. So that's how, and we have to build it together. You can't build half, we didn't want to build half a bridge and leave the other half in place. We're actually going to make it one bridge instead of two. And the intersection is being designed to be safe.
But when you worded it for the voter, they're expecting 2 bridges, 2 structures. Now, because of the design, which I don't disagree with, I'm not qualified to disagree with the design, you've led the voters to believe that you're going to get the westbound built first. And if we have time and money, we'll do the second half of the bridge. But since then, it's become one. It's become shorter, which I have a problem with the traffic flow there. And you're spending B money, quote, B money.
No, we're not. We're spending A money to build the westbound.
And you've eliminated something off the B list, though.
No, we haven't, because the other side's being built with federal grant money.
Yeah, I get what you're doing. I think that's an important fact to be ready to address that to the board if someone were to bring that up and how that's being worded. And I think it makes sense to do them both. My question on the length reduction is there some mitigation work in the stream bed that will be done in order for you to shorten that span and not put at risk the foundations and the anchors on either end?
I'll have to get answers on that.
Okay, because I guess that is a wide span of the creek through that area there. And so by shortening it is like this, that was a question that I had as well, was that are we doing something? And if so, is that stormwater that's working on that, or is that going to come to us as part of the construction project and being covered with RTA? Just a question.
Yeah, I'll find that out.
Okay, thank you. Reb?
Another question involving, you're making a 3-lane span both directions, but you have Plat, with adequate right-of-way already there to expand all the way to Shelton without any problems. Going east, you've got Powers, a bridge there, and then going on out to Mark Sheffel, you're down to 2 lanes and problems. And basically, you've got this, quote, wide bridge with only 2 lanes exiting. You've got, instead of lane dieting, you've got a balloon for the traffic.
Well, I think
I happen to
we're,
approve of the
yeah.
3 lanes as well
Yeah.
for the future, but I don't know where the hell it's going to go with the traffic.
well, actually, we've got a Plat Avenue corridor study that'll be looking at Plat from Powers into downtown, and I think it's anticipated that that section of Plat probably will need to be 6 lanes in the future.
That's what we paid this $1 million plus for the Plat Avenues.
All right, Joan, you had a question?
No, I was just going to make a motion.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions real quick? Go ahead.
I move recommendation of the city's 4 contract items to the board.
Do I have a second? Second, Larry, thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
One opposed? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
El Paso County, Ms. Jennifer. More stuff? Cool. Thanks.
Jennifer Irvin, El Paso County County Engineer. I'm passing out a updated map, and the cover page is a little bit wrong. I have 2 contracts for your consideration today, and I'll scroll down to the first one to explain. Looks like our front page, I thought we updated it, didn't really get updated. So I have 2 contracts for your consideration today, one on Eastonville, and the first one I'll talk about is in relationship to several projects out in the Falcon area. We have four separate projects out in that area that we are working on. And this contract, this first contract, is for a total of, let me flip, $727,241. It is for construction management of all of these 4 projects. We are working to bid several of these projects together for construction, but for the construction oversight, thought it would be cheaper and more cost-efficient to be able to have one consultant oversee the entire construction and do all the construction testing and inspections. So that's why we did this. So you will see on this cover memo, we have a total contract amount of $727,000, but we have associated a certain dollar amount with each project. So for our Meridian extension, and this is the correct map that you should be looking at, this is the capital project from PPRTA, the first PPRTA. That apportionment is about $60,000. And then for the intersection itself, the New Meridian US 24 intersection, which is in purple on your page, that amount is for approximately $467,000. And the Meridian McLaughlin Roundabout, which is a PPRTA extension project, that is for about $177,000. And then the new Meridian Road reconstruction, which the road exists. We are doing some pavement rehabilitation on that for maintenance, and that's $25,000. So that's the first overall contract. And you will see each of those have a separate PO amount and a separate account number. And when the contractor is billing that, we will apportion that to the correct project. Hopefully that makes sense. But what we're trying to do also is have, if we have issues out there, we have one construction management contractor that is overseeing that, so the public will be seeing and talking to one person as well as El Paso County. So.
The Meridian Road extension for 24, is that a very separated item, or is it going to be another synchronized intersection?
So if you see the So there is a signalized intersection out there today. It is at Old Meridian and US 24, and I just see that label is incorrect on that, on the purple one. But, yeah. Yes, correct. So sorry about that. We'll get that fixed as well. But if you look at the intersection on your right, that is currently signalized today. That has always been planned to be removed and is a right in, right out. And then the intersection to your left, on the left side, is the New Meridian Road intersection, and that one is where the signalized new signal will be placed. So what that does is that, one, it complies with the US 24 access management plan that the city, the county, and CDOT have signed off on in 2004. This was the plan for quite some time, and that also extends the distance in between that signal in that area to the existing signal at Woodman Road. So it will, although it doesn't meet all the criteria, we recognize that needed to be there, and it's a little bit less distance than we typically would have, but it's a better distance than the current location, and will provide better progression.
Jennifer, what is the time frame that's covered here? How many months of construction for all the projects?
So we are in the middle of trying to award the rest of these projects, and I anticipate that they will, for the construction contracts, will be coming to you next month. And we're hoping to get them into one construction season. We are going to have two separate contracts for construction, but it may bleed into 2021. You know, resource weather dependent as always on those contracts. But like I said, we do anticipate awarding those contracts in January, and then this represents a total investment, federal dollars, county dollars, PPRTA dollars, of about $20 million in this Falcon area.
Gene?
Gene. The first line item on the Meridian extension is PPRTA 1 money, and that zeroes out that amount from the PPRTA 1. Just wanted to make certain that. Thank you.
Larry, and then
That bullet item that you have up at the top, New Meridian Road reconstruction, and you have the bullet being pointed down to that intersection. There's been a problem with that intersection for several years now, as far as, and I'm not sure which water department it is, but their line continually keeps sinking the road. Is this project going to pay for that, or will the water department, and which water department is it, that will actually fix that problem so that we don't have that continuous sinking in the road?
So that was installed by a developer. The county has some developer funds that we're going to use to address that issue, and this New Meridian Road reconstruction is really the overall pavement reconstruction in that area. So they will fix we'll be fixing the sub-base issue with some of those other funds that we have from the developer. And then this portion is the entire green area. That's that road reconstruction, and that's the work that we're going to be doing.
How much work do you really think you've got on trying to fix that continually sinking water line that's there?
We haven't fixed it at all at this point. That hasn't been the county responsibility.
But it is the county responsibility now?
We are going to address the pavement. They are going to address the subgrade.
Okay, so they're going to take care of the
Yeah.
water line problem.
The county is with some funds that we have from a developer. The developer went upside down, and the county pulled the developer's letter of credit. And so we have those funds sitting in there, and with those funds, we're repairing the sub-base, which was one of their responsibilities.
Good.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
thank you.
I take it that was your question too.
I was reading this, that the red lines on the
Rick,
map-
turn your microphone on, please. Thank you.
I'm reading this as the red lines are some new development, is that correct? On
The red line is really related to the Meridian McLaughlin roundabout.
Right.
You'll see it kind of extends down to the green. Maybe that's what your question is.
Yeah.
And that's some storm sewer that is, so there's no roadway in that section. You can kind of see in the background, there's a cul-de-sac in there.
Uh-huh.
And then that red extends down to the green. That area is where we're actually putting underground storm system that actually drains into the pond that's kind of south to the across
Okay.
from that. So
That answers
that
my
doesn't
question.
represent roadway, it's trying to show the scope of the project.
Okay.
And that
Thank you.
drainage area was the area you got the credits for, you filed for the stuff a while back, right? Okay.
So that's the first contract. The second contract is in relationship to our project on Eastonville Road. We are doing a traffic study on that road. The entire section of what's identified for the PPRTA capital extension program. So we're looking to receive a recommendation from you for recommendation for consideration to Wilson and Company for about $97,000. We already have surveyed that entire area and at least the Phase 2 section, and that's the Phase 2 section that we're anticipating, Phase 1. Is it Monday? Phase 1. So the traffic study will encompass the entire Phase 1 and Phase 2, but the initial design that we're doing is on the Phase 1. Because when we had identified this project, we knew that we wanted to look at that entire section, but that doesn't mean that we have needed improvements on that entire section. We do know that we have needed improvements on the Phase 1, and that's why we're moving that phase along, and we'll come back and look at Phase 2 and see if there's any other needed improvements as a result of the PPRTA project.
What's the Snaffle Bit Road extension?
It just identifies.
So that's kind of the break
Demarcation
line
line?
between Phase 1 and
Okay.
Phase 2.
That's what I thought.
And if you actually go out there, it's actually where it changes from actual pavement to an interim chip seal that the county did about 8 years ago as a result of the school being, that was previously a gravel road. We had done a chip seal at some point, and that's really the most significant need out on Eastonville is that we have a gravel road that was chip sealed as an interim measure, which we don't do anymore, and the purpose was to upgrade Eastonville Road in that area to the county standards, really to accommodate, the additional traffic we were seeing from the
Sure.
school area.
Yeah, that growth out there.
And
is
the growth
phenomenal.
as well.
Yeah, sure. Larry, you had a question?
Jennifer, the total project actually goes all the way to Latigo Boulevard and includes that intersection there. Will you come back to us sometime in the future to look for traffic studies for the rest of the project, or how will you approach that to get the whole total project in there?
So the traffic study is going to cover the entire section, and the map doesn't go that far. That's why they kind of stopped it. They're just trying to show it. So the traffic study will encompass the entire named project. It's just we need to identify exactly where we need additional improvements on that corridor. We know we need improvements on that first phase for sure. Because there's been, the school go in, and we are working with the developer because he has some responsibility to do some of those improvements. So we're as a part of this, he's doing some of that design for us. So rather than constructing a throwaway lane, which is what they had originally planned to do, so what we're trying to do is focus on the initial project where we knew we needed those, and then based upon the traffic study, we'll look at whether additional improvements are needed outside of that first phase.
So the Wilson
Yeah.
and Company contract will cover the whole corridor that is
Correct.
on the project list.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. If there's no further questions, I'd like to move for approval for the 3 items.
I think Reb had a question. Do you mind holding on just a moment?
That's fine.
Jennifer, there's been an issue, actually, it's just to the east of the Safeway, and what was originally settling ponds, and I mean, it literally goes back over a decade of the flooding, and the county is responsible to clean it up, and Pony Tracks is one of the places, and things like that. But you've got a sand storage area, of soil, whatever, and it's my understanding from a previous presentation that the owner has asked you to deliver that dirt back to their property, not the owner or the developer. Is that problem going to be addressed in this? And I don't know by whom, but basically, all of the dirt from the development along Eastonville Road is the material that comes, if you look at US 24 sign, literally, it's your area where you usually have a couple of loaders there where they truck the stuff down. This material that is claimed by the developer. I don't know why it's your responsibility to get back to them, but.
So there's a drainage facility called the Bennett Ranch Channel, and there's an outlet from the Woodman Hills Detention Pond. Here, I can show you.
Sorry, I'm going back.
Yeah, you're kind of asking a completely separate question, but I'll be happy to answer it.
It's
Not related to this project, but
But where does that material come from that they have to clean up?
it doesn't come from anywhere now because we fixed it.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Essentially, there's a drainage facility up, a detention facility right here. It drained down this area and across 24, and there's another detention facility down here. We had a blowout in 2013 as a result of a lot of the storms, and we were very creative and got several sources of funds, FEMA funds, NRCS funds, and also county funds, and all those drainage facilities have been repaired.
Was that what that bluegill thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So, no PPRTA money involved,
no, but I've been out there with a couple.
except we did have at the Judge Orr location, right in here, we did do an emergency repair, and we did have maintenance funds to complete that repair and put in a box culvert. So,
Larry?
I'd like to move for approval for the 3 contract items that Jennifer presented.
Second.
Second.
Brian, second. Larry, motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thanks,
and for
Jennifer.
Rick, I'll make sure we have these corrections to you.
Thank you, Jennifer. All right, moving right along. 7A, Brian, and it's not 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Good afternoon, Brian Vituli with the City of Colorado Springs Mountain Metro Transit with your monthly transit report. For our fixed route services for the month of October, we saw a slight decrease of 0.6%. We provided just about 276,000 trips for the month. So it's down a little bit from October of 2018. What we believe the issue was is we had 2 snow delays in October. We've had a pretty rough winter so far, and I think we're still a couple weeks away from the first day of winter. So we'll see how it goes the rest of the winter. But so for comparison, normally we average about 11,000 trips per day, and on those snow days we carried around 3,000 to 4,000, or provided 3,000 to 4,000 trips. So that more than enough makes up for the dip in October of this month.
Well, one of the things I did notice, I mean, even though your weekday service went down, you did see a substantial weekend service uptick.
Right.
So
Yep.
I think that's a good thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. So yes, we're still trending very well for the year, and so this we have a lot to be pleased with for that. For our ADA paratransit services, we saw a really steep decrease of just a little over 24% for that same time period, and I believe that the weather factored into that somewhat also. For our van pool services, we operated 25 van pools in October with 150 full-time participants, and saw a decrease of a little over 17%. And we're still, our PR and marketing folks are still heavily promoting our van pool services. We have like a $200 incentive to try to get people into van pools, while they're navigating the I-25 GAP project. And hopefully when that project is finished, we'll keep them as van pool riders, and with the managed lane, that makes traveling in a van pool much more attractive. So
and that's what I was going to ask. I mean, have you guys done any projections on how the toll road is going to affect van pool service? Any.
No official scientific analysis, but I mean, we're hopeful. I mean, the activity we've been seeing on our website has been really strong.
Okay.
A lot of people are visiting the website. They're showing a lot of interest. It's not quite equating into more van pools being formed, but
People are researching.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So they're looking for alternatives, it seems like. Project update. So for our 2045 regional transit plan and our specialized transportation coordination plan, they're currently out in public view for a 30-day public review period. We released them on November 11th. So if anybody would like to review those draft plans, go to that link that's in your packet there. It's on our homepage under Transit Planning Studies, but this link that's in your memo here will take you right to that, and you can read the draft plan, you can comment on it, and we're looking for final approval in January at the PPACG board meeting. And our North Nevada Transit Connectivity Study, we had our second round of stakeholder meetings in early November, and we're kind of looking forward to our first public open house. We're looking at either January 29th or January 30th of the new year. So this will be when we show the public, everybody who's involved, what's been studied and where we're at, up to this point. And what we're looking at, the consultant team has, thrown out about 6 or 8 alternative modes, all the way from keeping what we have out there now, like a fixed route bus, to an express bus or a bus rapid transit light, which is a higher level of service, perhaps a uniquely branded set of vehicles, not the full set of features that a BRT heavy would have, where you may have shared stations, dedicated right away, something like that, all the way to streetcar and light rail. And the analysis that's gone on so far and the results from the stakeholder meetings shows two of those modes being advanced for further study. So that's the BRT light and streetcar. So the ridership analysis that looks at which alternatives to move forward looks at what our existing ridership is now in the corridor. And so currently, between a couple different routes in that Nevada corridor, we're averaging about 800 trips a day. looking out using PPACG's travel model, looking out at 2045 employment and population projections, factoring in, and these are conservative ridership estimates too, by the way, also factoring in, what kind of draw would a streetcar or BRT light have on our riders. And, when you put a higher level of service out in a different type of vehicle, trains, streetcars, trolleys, whatever you want to call them, and BRT, they are, better levels of service, better type of vehicle, and they tend to attract more people. So looking at future projections and all of that, it's looking like, we could perhaps carry about 3,000 to 5,000 trips per day in that corridor. So that meets the threshold of a BRT or a streetcar. Light rail is, up into 15,000 and higher trips per day. And light rail is, it's something our neighbor to the north has, and, you have stations that are farther apart, and it's kind of, not a good match for this corridor. But, and then the consultant team's also been looking at alignment alternatives. So we kind of know where we're going to be on North Nevada, north of Fillmore and between Garden of the Gods, Austin Bluffs. There's an abandoned railroad right away to the east side of Nevada Avenue that we could potentially have a dedicated transit right away on. But the fun part is figuring out how to travel south of Fillmore, through the old North End, near North End neighborhoods to downtown. And so, again, they looked at about eight or 10 alternative alignments, including I-25 and Union, at the request of the old North End neighborhood. They would prefer us to operate around their neighborhood. It's kind of difficult to pick up passengers on the interstate, too. So I-25 alternative and Union dropped from consideration. They're too far out of the project area. So we're moving forward with Cascade, Nevada, Weber, and Wasatch. What makes a service reliable, fast, so it can compete with the private auto user, is trying to have a really direct route. When you start making turns to get around neighborhoods that don't want you there, it kind of slows you down, and it gives our customers a feeling that, if they're going north and you start going east, and then you go north and then you start going west, they kind of wonder if they're ever going to get there. So there's value in having a really direct, reliable service. So that's what will be passed on at the public open house in January. And, we're about halfway through this project. We're looking to finalize this probably in July of 2020. So it's stay involved, and I'll be here every month giving you updates. Brian?
Back during the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a big push for the historic streetcars, and it's actually it's died out over the last several years, but there's still an interest. And I think that's actually an exciting opportunity that maybe you could get some buy-in from the old North End, because it is a historic neighborhood, going back to Colorado Springs historic streetcar use, maybe having because there are historic streetcars running. I hate and shudder to use San Francisco as an example, but their historic streetcar line is actually really popular because of that. Mm-hmm. So I think that might be a good opportunity to get buy-in from them. And it would be a really neat point of interest for our city, I think, to kind of bring that back a little bit.
Yeah, and so, adding to the trickiness is the old North End neighborhood doesn't really, and like a lot of neighborhoods and communities, they don't really speak with a unified voice. So you have, you have residents on one street saying that transit should be on the other street, and you have some saying that streetcars are great, or, some people are saying run smaller buses. And, if we run smaller buses and we're going to get anywhere near these ridership levels, that means a lot of small buses running through the neighborhood. So it would be great to get a unified voice. We're unsure that we ever will. I don't think any study comes out with one clear, let's hold hands and all agree on everything. But we can try for that. Yeah. But yeah, I think in July we'll know a lot more of what this looks like, and it's pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting.
Brian, if I may, one point that I struggle with, and I'm on this study group, is picturing there's a redevelopment plan from Nevada for Fillmore north to Garden of the Gods, much like what the vision is, much like what would have happened north of Garden of the Gods up to I-25. So if you look at that piece of land now, or that stretch of land now, it's hard to envision why are we doing this, because there's nothing there that drives ridership at the moment. You got the grass pit, the old Greyhound thing, a few derelict hotels on the side that have a purpose and serve a need. But it's really hard to envision why I need this improved, modernized transit from Fillmore to Garden of the Gods, given the current landscape. And so I would encourage, there is some information out on this link that takes you to a master plan that has a vision for what that's already been completed, of what the city's vision is for that, and then look at that in light of this. And there's a study closed? The study was already closed, right?
2016 there was a master plan process. Yep.
But come to this meeting, we'll get word out on when that is. But take a look at that, because I think if you can envision what that might look like, particularly the successes north of Garden of the Gods, if it's that successful going south, you can begin to understand the need for that improved transportation in this corridor. So it's an interesting study for best, and I personally struggle with why are we doing this, but I had to kind of really go dig into that plan a little bit. So it is something that would help improve that area immensely. So I just encourage you to take an opportunity to look at that. And I'm sure Tony would have some comments on the other plan as well, but he's not here today. So
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. I mean, and that's the key reason that we don't operate on Nevada now, is that there's no pedestrian facilities. It's not an inviting environment for people. We kind of go up Cascade north of Fillmore, and then we come out on Winters and a little bit on Nevada, and then Mount View. So we kind of zigzag through that corridor, but we purposely do not serve that section of North Nevada just because it's so uninviting. But this planning that is kind of key to seeing what things are going to look like in the future, and this master planning process that the city did in 2016 kind of outlines that perfectly. It's how do we want it kind of lays the groundwork for those who will be involved in redevelopment efforts. Do we want the redevelopment close to the roadway and good pedestrian and bicycle facilities and good transit service, and just to think, as Jim said, north of Garden of the Gods, Austin Bluffs, you have University Village, you have all of the new facilities that UCCS has, a City for Champions project in there with the Performing Arts Center. Years ago, that section of North Nevada was not the most inviting place either, and it's totally changed, and that's what the hope is for this southern section. So that's about it. Yeah, feel free to read those plans. The 2045 Regional Transit Plan has a lot of good recommendations, kind of carrying forward the 2040 Transit Plan recommendations, continue improving our existing system before we expand. But if we do have an opportunity to expand, let's try to keep seeking those partnerships to help subsidize those. improving service hours, frequency, reliability, planning for innovations. Are there new types of services, new technology that we can use to help our riders and make our system work better? And improving the user experience and access, continue improving sidewalk conditions, that allows people to reach our bus stops and our system. So thank you for your time, and thanks for your interest.
Any questions for Brian? Okay, thanks, Brian.
All right, thank you.
Have a nice afternoon. All right, item 7B, City Colorado Springs Rock Rim and Construction. David, you going to do this?
Good afternoon. I'm David Scalfrey with Public Works Operations and Maintenance, Operations Manager with the Contracted Programs team. And last time I stood before you, I believe was the meeting in September, and we had stated that we were going to pursue the completion of the Rock Rim and Boulevard project. And so the status today is that we were able to, our contractor was able to get the subgrade removed, replaced with new material, and then a bottom mat and an intermediate mat. And so we'll go ahead with some slides, and then we'll get into a few more details. Okay. I think I pushed the wrong button.
We have the technology to help you.
That's great. There we go. Okay. Okay, thank you. So if you will, the project was just switching to the southbound side of the road the last time we spoke, with a focus on full depth removal and then replacement of the subgrade. You'll see some pictures here. This is the milling of that existing roadway up in the vicinity of Vindicator Drive. And then this is another picture where the poor subgrade was being removed, and you can see that up in this area here, new subgrade being placed and prepped. Compactive efforts all the way throughout the project. And then this is the upper layer of the subgrade or base that was placed over a geogrid base that we use throughout Rock Rim and Boulevard with the intent to improve stability of that roadway. String line set across the southbound side. This is facing west, approximately at the old HP entrance. And this string line was set in place for the curb machine to come in, and the curb machine is just really helped expedite the placement of curb gutter and then allowed for the contractor to get in for some paving. This is the actual placing going on. You see the curb machine in the background, and it does move very quickly. Another shot of the curb. You see some handwork that is being formed and prepped on. This must have been where they ended out at. Crosspan being placed, pedestrian ramp opening being set where you see the gentleman standing. And then paving of the bottom mat. You can see that going on right here. And as I stated, the bottom mat and intermediate mats were placed on Rock Rim and Boulevard. So we're sealed for the winter, and we anticipate that we will go back in with the contractor in probably late April, May timeframe, when weather allows us, and when the specific oil is available. We're using a PG 64-28 for the top mat. It's a polymerized oil, and availability is limited until they start with a higher production, which would be late spring. This is showing our schedule. The schedule, as you can see, was completed on October 31st, 25% of the work remaining. Our contractor approached us in mid-October requesting some additional days due to their weather delays at the front of the project. So if you will, if you remember correctly, bomb cyclone, we had another blizzard, I believe it was May 22nd, I believe it was, which was, it's Colorado and it's Mother Nature, but I don't remember anything like that late in the year. So we did award them some additional days, and I want to say that it was roughly 14 additional days. They pushed hard, they worked some weekends, they got that bottom mat in place. All that being said, when the work commences, they will be going back to perform the top mat and complete the road. Through the winter, you will see some sidewalk being placed, some other additional concrete work that can be accomplished during the winter months. And then again, paving will take place hopefully late next spring, early summer, and then we'll be done with that for many, many years. So any questions?
What are your restrictions on placing concrete and protecting it from freezing?
It's 32 degrees and rising for placement. They blanket, and they have to maintain 50 degrees for 5 days.
What is the temperature of the concrete when you place it?
I believe around 90 degrees when we place it. And then after that, it makes its own heat, and
Right.
therefore it's blanketed. And then the temperatures are monitored throughout that whole time,
All right.
the 5-day time.
Do you check the temperature of the concrete? Or
Our
you
inspectors
just-
do. They put high-lows underneath. They used to put high-lows, the mechanical, when I inspected, and I believe they even have some technology now that I'm going to hold short. I think they don't have to pull the blankets. They can use technology to do it. So forgive me if I'm misquoting here, but anyways, that's what we monitor.
Has anybody tested the concrete? Because I see various areas of town where it's especially bad for scaling, and basically I assume it's in trained area was left out or whatever, and maybe a little excess moisture on the surface when we try and bring the cream. Never mind.
Yes, I know what you're talking about,
Well,
and agree wholeheartedly. So
what do you have for compressive strength on the concrete?
I think it's 4,000 PSI. I don't recall the days that it takes to get there, but I do know that they pour
28.
cylinders per project. They do at a minimum of one test per day per contractor. So on Rock Rimmon, you would see one test a day unless there was a question.
Let me rephrase some of this so you can see where I'm going. Have you updated your testing and meeting standards? Well, what I've seen is failed concrete, and I have a pretty good idea why. And no, not this project.
Okay.
Around town, we're replacing curb and gutter that I don't think was put in properly to begin with.
Oh, there's plenty of that around. Look around Woodman and I-25, that decorative kind of stuff that's just a whole lot. But anyway, this is not on this project, though.
No,
Right.
and all I'm worried about, you're putting a whole lot of effort into this, and
So I will say that our staff wholeheartedly understand what is required when you're placing concrete to do it correctly, and blessing it with a brush, and I think that's what you're referring to, has not been allowed on our projects. And that philosophy is not only comprehended, but it's lived by with our inspection staff as well. So we have not had problems with flaking and failure for quite some time, because we do hold very strictly to specifications, and that specifically, where you were saying bringing the cream to the top, yes. We work very hard. They use the spray cans. Therefore, the water is ionized in a very fine mist, and they work it that way. I hope that answers the question.
it does.
Okay. Anyone else? Can I answer anything else for you?
Just kind of, one of the concerns we've seen in the past is the boundary between concrete and asphalt is usually where we see deterioration occurring. What have they done on this project to kind of mitigate for that? Because I know there's ways of doing it, but I'm not that familiar. And I just wanted to make sure that, because we are putting a lot of effort and money into this, that, 2 years, 3 years from now, we don't see it starting to crumble along those margins.
Right. And one of the greatest factors that we've come across is that when we use a composite section, so in other words, these deep sections of road base and then 3 lifts of asphalt, that usually minimizes the separation against concrete. Keep in mind, concrete and asphalt don't get along. So there will be a level of separation at a point, but what I believe you're referring to would be the wide gaps that you see along the eastern powers corridor of the city. A lot of that has to do with, and there's a lot of speculation, but a full depth paving process to where they got away from composite section for many years. Okay. And so, but we are addressing Rock River Boulevard with composite section.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you bet.
David, I have a question. Not so much about the paving as much as the drainage, all the way from way up that hill, and a lot of the rain and the snow and stuff we've had over the last couple of months. A lot of that ends up down at the south end of Delmonico and Rock Rimmon in that area. Now with improved asphalt and this kind of stuff, I'm sure you guys have, but can you just reassure us that someone's looking at the overall drainage issues that occur at the top end of that hill with the new housing development that's gone in along there and the space there, that's all being looked at the same time?
You know, I will say that we addressed that through an engineering firm before we started the project. They offered several suggestions for us to include a wick drain. In that, I believe we mentioned that just a little bit. It might even had a photo of it the last time that we presented to you. And so that's what we did to help mitigate the water issues. And I think maybe you're referring to potential groundwater issues, and which are quite widespread in that area.
Yeah, on the southeast corner of that Woodman Rock Rimmon thing, they did a couple of years ago that drainage ditch and went across and reinforced that as it goes towards the railroad tracks in that area. And I've been through there. I mean, I live in that area, and there's some pretty good flows of water coming down Rock Rimmon there, and now it's just going to be improved with the nice improved surface. So I was just making sure that someone's looking at that, I guess.
There were eyes on, as I mentioned, our engineering firm, Plat is the program supervisor over that entire project and extensive drainage background, so he was hands-on. And so kudos to him and the engineering firm. I will say, I know they did a few inlet upgrades down at the bottom, and they did some extensive pipe. It was concrete pipe underneath the roadway. They did a lot of caulking in the joints with some labor, contracted labor. So
Okay.
I hope that answers the question, and we really hope for a long-term product here for everyone.
Great. Thank you for the update. Any questions for Dave? All right. Thanks a lot, Dave.
Thank you.
7C, City of Cara Springs monthly change order. Any questions from any of you guys on this for Mike? No questions? All right, thanks, Mike. Good job. El Paso County change orders. Any questions for Jennifer? Great job, Jennifer. Quarterly reports, other member governments.
Are there any questions about this report? It's information only.
It took so long.
Yep.
Good information for your for folks that ask you questions. So
I did have kind of a question. It's marked as page 3, but it's back there pretty substantially. So it would be page 3 in, so that's 18.
City or county?
Third quarter.
City.
PPRTA projects, quarterly update, third quarter 2019.
It would be the cities.
It's just past the table of contents. Table of contents is page 2.
Does it? What's it look like?
It's like this.
There's the cover page.
Okay, this one?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's,
Okay.
I was a little confused by some of the labeling, and I guess maybe it just need a little clarification. PPRTA CIP project status report, and then it's got percent of funds allocated, 73.49. Can you tell me what I'm looking at?
Mike, can you help me? But, yeah, this is a city one.
Looks like this.
Not quite halfway through your for your packet.
CIP project status update report, it says 73. I'm trying to figure out which,
I think.
is this from a list, or what's this actually telling me? Or what's it supposed to tell me?
So basically, what we started including was just kind of an update on active projects, and we were just trying to kind of give a snapshot of where we're at on the budgets. And so, like what we have.
So these are projects that are
actively going, yes, and what contracts we've have against them and how much we spent with those. Just to try to keep an update of where we're at, because there's a lot of times Bev's things aren't updated as because she does billings monthly or
right. I was trying to reconcile what I was seeing and trying to. I couldn't get my head around what I was reading.
Okay.
That's it. Okay. That's it. That's all I needed to know. Thanks.
Any other questions for Rick on the quarterly report? Thank you, Rick. Board of actions on recent board actions.
Memos in your packet. Take any questions you might have.
Do have one question.
Yes.
What was the reason given for the override of the CAC recommendation on Manitou Springs? Did they give a reason? Was there a rationale?
On number 8?
Yeah.
Jim, you want to take a stab at that?
Take the stick.
So the discussion, and I left my notes, but in the pre-meeting, I reiterated that we probably talked about this for close to an hour. And at the time, they didn't think that would be that controversial. The board talked about it for almost that length of time as well, just among their members. The overriding decision was that, correct me if but the overriding decision was that this was essential to operations. It fit within the guidelines and the law. And there was a split vote. I don't remember the vote.
6 to 1.
6 to 1. Yeah. So going into that discussion, my observation, and Reb can chime in, but my observation is it wasn't 6 to 1 going in. And I think the discussion and the sway did move that it was an essential piece of Manitou Springs' ability to accomplish these tasks and things, and that even though going back to the early stages that they'd disapproved the city's thing, it was different situation than this one, and so the vote came out the way it did. But it was a good discussion around many of the same points that we had in our meeting here.
I think another one was that it was a relatively small amount of money.
Right.
It was in the big picture of the PPRTA, and it was a lot of the positives by the board were stated here at the CAC by those who voted in favor, because you remember it was a split vote with the CAC. It was a safety need.
Safety, health issue.
That it was fit within the definition of operations, and operations, the word operations was in the ballot measure. So it was mainly the same positives that were expressed here.
Tom?
Just more of them.
This strikes me as it's an ancillary thing to the capital maintenance discussion, but it's one more reason we need to have that, till we finally define what that is, because, again, this is maintenance dollars being used for something that isn't purely a transportation building. And I think it goes to the credibility of what we do here.
Yeah, and that public perception discussion was out there just like we had it here in terms of the voters' intent and this, that, and another. That was all discussed at the board, pros and cons. So, like, it doesn't happen all that often, but they're elected officials, and we're citizens advisory, and they've got to live with those decisions. We made our recommendation. We can stand behind ours, I think, and I presented it as best I could with all the arguments, and like I said, I didn't expect the discussion to go as long as it did, but there were some people that were pretty adamant about a few things, and I think the tide shifted a little bit during the course of discussion. So,
and it was spirited as it was with the CAC, on the back and forth.
It really was. So I felt okay with the decision coming out of it based on the discussion they had and the things they did. I could have, as I mentioned at our meeting, I could have built an argument either way for it, but the decision by the board and the way it is. But it was, I can guarantee it was many of the same subjects that we discussed here, and very spirited among some of the elected officials. So, Rev?
Yeah, I'd like to ask Rick something. Did we get both handouts that the board did? You had researched and given us two CRS 18 something, don't remember which, the law itself.
Yeah.
And one that refers to us,
and
the one about the decision by the board in 2005.
Rick didn't distribute the CRS one for us.
So
it was
literally
partial.
There was an added to the argument that the board had was that there was actual state statutes that permitted it.
And
we didn't have that.
And the lawyers chimed in as well in terms of applicability and legalities and from the statute and that kind of stuff. So that what we don't have for us is the benefit of the lawyer for the PPRTA, but she was there as legal counsel and reinforced and answered any questions that were asked in that regard. So it was a good discussion.
One more thing, if I could. The only concern I had, and like you can build an argument either way, and the only concern I have is emotion overriding reason, and the slippery slope that we create for ourselves. That being said, we did what we thought was right. The board did what they thought was right. They're the ones who essentially have to live with the consequences. So,
Sure. The other item that I want to oh, go ahead.
Thank you. They are the board, and they make the decisions, and I can live with that. You were exactly right at the last meeting when you told me that actually any sort of transportation could be approved, including gondolas. And so I read the state law, and damn if that word wasn't in there. The reason I wanted to speak a moment, the thing that concerns me, the state law, if I had been around and up there in Denver, I would have raised hell about the broadness of that state law. Because under that law, the way it's written, it almost allows you to spend the money any way you want. That's the idea. But the reason that I think PPRTA has been successful, and the reason I think it chose the route it chose to go by listing the projects, it gave the public a reason to vote in favor of it. And if we stick to that and don't have really broad language, and we've got a new one that may be coming up even next year, or if not then the next year, if the public begins to feel that we are approving projects that are not listed specifically, or that we are, in effect, not doing what we say we're going to do when it goes to the public, then that might become the end of PPRTA. And I just, yes, it can be, yeah, it's eligible under state law, but PPRTA identifies within that boundary, and it ought to stick to it. And but I guess if I think that's something I will generally try to stay with. But of course, it's our elected officials that make the decision, as they should be the ones. And so I just shrug my shoulders and say we did our job. I thought our chair did a great job, and I'm sure he made a great presentation. So that's my remarks.
And if I may add, Richard, the board is heavy on consideration of on the list, off the list, and public impression, public support and intention. So if there's anything controversial within that subject comes up of what was the intent and what is our reputation back to the board. And so just let you know that is a conscious decision that's made by those folks after that discussion.
Mr. Chair?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
And I think that same thing can be said with the Spine Road UCCS project.
The other thing I wanted to point out is number 13 on my memo, that the board, a month early, reappointed Jim Godfrey, Gene Bray, and David Chestnut, effective January 1st, back to the CAC. And one new member that Jim Godfrey mentioned, he's out in the audience today, Jim Moore, who will be sitting at our table and voting in January. Reminder that the January meeting is Thursday, January 2. Any other questions on the board meeting?
Okay. Next one. The
new website, and I hope everybody's had a chance to look at it. Jenny Phillips and Jessica McMullen have been working on this, and Bev and I contributing for several months. We're excited. It's a new and jazzier and easier to maintain website. The older one is outdated and very labor intensive to keep it updated. So the changes from we think we're at about the 95% point in its development. We'd like to go live later this month or early January, maybe January 2. So it does not have the maps that the old site has, but I've talked to our GIS, PPACG staff, and we will meet at 9 o'clock in the morning and work on we can't easily electronically or by computer convert the old maps to the new. We have to rebuild it from scratch, but the GIS staff with PPACG says that that's very doable by the end of the month. So the maps are needed, and hopefully we can do that before we go live. The pothole counter at the bottom of the scroll, I'm wanting to eliminate that, if you're okay with that, because particularly there's probably 50 or 100 new potholes filled every day, so that's ridiculous to try to keep that updated on a daily basis. So I'd like to eliminate that scroll that you probably saw. The other thing I'd like to eliminate is the news page, which right now has the annual report on it, but all the annual reports are in the library section. Yep. So the news page has the annual report, which is elsewhere, is in the libraries, and a bunch of newspaper articles that are just cut and pasted and slapped on there. It's my feeling that they get old real fast, and one of the news articles that's on the draft page now is from 2017. I don't think that's needed. We don't have that many news articles that apply to PPRTA. The most recent one was the one that was not so flattering about the West Colorado groundbreaking, or I'm sorry, ribbon cutting. She said, the gal that wrote the article in the Gazette said it was not finished, and you're having a ribbon cutting, it was not finished, and it's over budget and late and all. So on the one hand, she was saying it's almost finished, and then she gave us 4 zingers in the negative on the other side. So I'm not sure that posting a once every 6 months or once a year news article for a total of 4 or 5 news articles over the past 3 years is worth it. So I'm suggesting we just eliminate the news clipping section. So with the maps, eliminating the scroll and eliminating the news section, I think we're ready to go. And after we address all your questions, what I'm asking for is a recommendation to the board to approve it, subject to the maps being added in the next few weeks.
Cheryl first, and then Tom. Sorry, Tom.
On the CAC page, there's a table of who's on it, but you can't. At least on my computer, I can't read it. Is that going to be enhanced at all?
Let me actually pull that up just to make sure.
From our policy and communications.
So we can take a look at that.
IT and web staff.
There was something similar to what I noticed is sometimes the different device, like I noted an offset that you guys didn't see, and I went to a completely different, I went from my phone to my computer, and it didn't show on my computer, but it showed on my phone. So it was an adaptive thing, I think.
Mm-hmm. And again, depending on what device you're using depends on exactly how you're viewing it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're using an Apple device or an Android device or your computer, it's all going to be different just because that's how they render it. I will take a look at that. It was just on your phone, your mobile device?
No, it was on my computer. At home.
Okay, so we're using Chrome or Internet
Chrome.
Explorer? Okay. So this is actually Chrome. Let me take a peek at it. But I will take a look because, again, screen size also messes with it and that kind of thing. So some of those can be addressed as well.
The middle, yeah. Yeah, see the...
Ideally, we're going to end up having the same kind of setup as like the board, where we'll have a list of who's attending, not just an attachment of a page.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. That'll be a different.
And that's actually it's a downloadable.
Is it a link?
Oh, okay. I didn't do that, so I just was trying to, I thought, what is that? Because I couldn't tell, and then I, got real close and decided
so that'll be an addition, actually, is I would take this exact thing and convert it into an actual, directly on the page, not just a link.
Gotcha.
Correct, yes, sir.
Tom?
Do we do any linking on our site to the PPACG transportation side?
Currently, no. We have from PPACG to PPRTA, but there's nothing, unless it is directly correlation, like if there's a project that overlaps, I don't have any links.
The PPACG is sort of the future activity, much more than we are.
Mm-hmm.
And just, you turn it into a little bit more of a one-stop shop for people that hit the site. Just something to think about.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I had a lot of folks asking me about was when they go to the site now, what they're looking for is information on what's going on and what's coming up. And I was wondering, they're installing all these message boards, and CDOT has this. I don't know if it's an RSS feed or something. I'm not that technology savvy. But the upcoming announcements of, okay, this is going to start this month, and you better look for a different way to go, kind of a thing.
We not.
That's on
thought about or talked about that.
The city's roads department has the Waze app thing through their work zone, the cone zone map. If you're looking for what's going on in the city and what delays and stuff are, you go to the city's road department cone zone map, and it's powered by Waze, and that feeds it. So
Is there a way to maybe link with,
It could be, but I'm just the technical person, but in all honesty, when you're talking about that kind of stuff, if it pertains to PPRTA specifically, that's what we're doing with the website.
that's right.
It's
That
not
might be
really,
good stuff.
it's the
Yeah.
city, it doesn't really pertain to exactly what the PPRTA is
Good
doing.
point.
So it's a nice resource, but again, if you're looking for specifics on what's updated for RTA, that's where this map, this interactive map that we're talking about, that's what we're really trying to focus on about PPRTA specifics.
Okay.
is the quarterly, Rick's first, sorry.
On that feedback I gave, I asked whether the overlay, the map,
Mhm.
that thing on the overlay, is that going to be possible?
The layers?
Yeah.
Yes. So with the maps, the GIS folks are actually trying to develop some stuff that actually will show those kind of specific things that you're asking for. So it will be very intuitive. It'll be up to date with the latest that we have for numbers and everything. But yeah, so we actually switched over to a program. That's why we have to start from scratch, because we're switching into a different program. So. Yes, it'll be active until it goes live. So, and it will be updated. So if there's feedback, it'll be updated. So it's not just going to be a static type.
Any
Thank
other
you.
questions for Jenny? And I will say that you are a welcome addition to this building.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. It's good to hear.
No, very much so. I was definitely impressed. With that in mind, I'd like to move that we recommend approval to the board with the, subject to the changes that we've discussed.
Jane, second. Okay. Rick, Rev?
Is there any way we could make it subject to January 2nd, just so that we know what to expect? I'm just suggesting, that's what she said.
You mean for the, to go live?
Recommended.
We were shooting for ASAP as soon as we can get the maps up, and that might be later this month or January 2nd at the latest.
Well, that's why I was giving you the latest that you asked for. That's all I want.
Okay.
But,
You want that in the motion? Is that what you're saying?
or, just so you've got flexibility, that's all I'm trying to
By
do.
January 2nd.
It is.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great job, Jenny.
Thank you. Yep.
Agenda topics for, Rick, were you finished?
8C.
Oh, 8C, sorry.
Just a reminder that at your January 2nd meeting, you'll need to select your chair, first vice chair and second vice chair per your bylaws. Just a reminder.
Right. Item, agenda number 9, agenda topics for next meeting. Anybody have any burning issues we want to hear about?
The maintenance,
Maintenance versus capital.
Say again?
So I have a question, might lead to an agenda topic.
All right. Cheryl, were you going to say something?
yes, I'd like to see if we can get that definition of maintenance versus capital.
Okay. Okay, Jane, go ahead.
This may be an issue only with me, but there are a few of the CAC meetings during the course of the year that seem to fall on worst possible dates available. One is coming next month, where the first is on Tuesday and
Wednesday.
meetings on Wednesday.
First is Wednesday, yeah.
And I'm wondering if there is any other people on the CAC that have issues with that in order to make the meetings, if it's problematic, or if I'm the one-off.
No, I think that for that particular meeting, we're going to have it on Thursday instead of Wednesday.
Right. Oh, we are?
Yes.
He's made him out.
Look at the wheel.
So that meeting will be on the 2nd, not Wednesday the 1st. It'll be Thursday the 2nd.
Okay.
We occasionally do vote when we need to.
Yeah.
Well, I may be the one-off, so if nobody else is going to speak up and say there's a problem, then I'm good.
All right. All right, any other agenda items? Okay, communications. Reb has something he wants to say.
Yeah, I'd like to wish everybody a very heartfelt thanks for their service to this. Joan's frowning over there. She can't hear you. I'm
You're
yelling.
mumbling up there.
I'd like to thank everybody for their service this year and wish everybody a very happy, safe holiday season.
Larry?
Yes, I'd just like to follow up with some comments from Rick concerning the dedication of the PPRTA Colorado project. I thought that dedication went very well. Quite a few of us did attend that. The presentations that were given there explained, why some of the project cost overruns were there. Explained, how come the project was behind schedule. And I thought the presenters went into real good detail as far as outlining all that information. I read the Gazette article also, Rick, and, when I looked at that, I'm going, she didn't like this project. And I will just leave it at that,
Well, and neither did one of the TV reporters, so yeah, I got that. But you bring up a really good point. And that project was, and Jennifer, please correct me if I'm wrong, but that project was never presented as a completely designed and costed project from the get-go. And so that's an important factor as we get into different contracting types and whether we're going to work at a 75 or 85% or a design build or some of that kind of stuff where cost will be added. That first one is an estimate. And as educated as it might be, it's almost guaranteed to change. And so I think that's an important thing as we go forward with these contracts to the people that our constituents and people that we talk with, is that reminder that this was never designed as a complete project for the get-go. And so I agree with your analysis of that, Larry. It was a great presentation. I thought it was really good. Rick?
There we go. On these things here, we've got a lot of them left. And what I've started doing is I shop at the King Supers out at Marshall and Powers, or Constitution. And so I take about 10 or 15 of them, and when I walk in where they have their sales flyers, I just move them over, empty one of them, and I put 10 or 50 of these in there. And they're always gone. So maybe we can help Rick get rid of some of these by dropping them off at the store you shop at.
Great idea. Anything else from anybody? All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a great holiday and safe.